Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. On the back of the new intro video.
What a screenshot you got of me, mouth wide open. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I got the perfect timing on it.
You must have been saying something utterly ridiculous.
You had me intrigued. Clearly, I was entranced.
Maybe I was talking. I don't know.
Oh, man. This is the last episode where we will not be reviewing actual football from the college ranks. This is Tailgate Trash Talk, Week 0 preview. We're going to talk playoff as well, conference winners, etc. Bentley, how you doing, man? You excited? We got a couple, we're down to like less than 100 hours from college football.
Yes. I said it last week. I'll say it again. It's the most wonderful time of the year. People like to talk about Christmas and it's college football season, baby.
Yeah, you can have Christmas. We've got Week 0.
Yeah. Call me next week.
Yeah, we'll see. We're not as last couple years we've had some decent like matchups and intrigue, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's not as loaded as a couple of I shouldn't say loaded. Like Week 0 has never been like loaded, but we've had better matchups, I think, in the last couple Week 0s. All that aside, let's talk conference winners. So we're going to pick a winner for each of these conferences, and then that's going to lead us into the playoff because obviously, as the CFP has said, conference winners are going to get first consideration for the top 4 seeds, and then the highest seeded, highest ranked non-top 4 seed conference winner gets the 5th seed. There's a whole fucking shebang of formulas and entendres and caveats to this ranking system that's going to give us a 12-team playoff. But before we even get to that, we got to talk conference winners, man. So let's start in the American Athletic Conference. We're going to go in alphabetical order. No preference, no SEC bias, no East Coast, West Coast bias, none of that. You can't blame us for the way the alphabet falls. American Athletic Conference. Bentley, give us a little breakdown of the odds here in terms of who the favorites are to win the conference, and then give me your pick.
Okay, sure. Let me pull up the odds real fast. I had them on a different I was on a different page.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
Yeah, no. All right. So basically, we're looking at University of Memphis, go Tigers. Not to be confused with go Tigers.
No, go Tigers.
So you got the University of Memphis. Who is your favorite? And I'm just going off the FanDuel odds here, obviously. They're plus 210. You got Tulane, our Vegas darling from last year, won us a lot of money last season. They did lose their coach, they lost their quarterback. There's some talent going out the door, but they're still coming in at second at plus 300. I just kind of going down the line. UTSA is in there, South Florida, Rice. Rice is at plus 2,000, and everything below them is even longer shots, all the way up to Temple at 250 to 1. So honestly, it's like it kind of feels like a nip and tuck kind of thing. Like you got Memphis at the top. There's not a whole lot of you get some value elsewhere. I really, really wanted to pick South Florida to win this conference because I think that team is going to score a lot of points every week. My issue with them is that they play at Alabama and they host Miami. So that kind of scared me off of them winning this conference. Now, if we're talking conference title, like championship game winners, they could be a battle-hardened team going in that conference championship game and maybe surprise some teams. But I went a little chalky here. I just picked Memphis. I had to be completely honest with you. My American Athletic Conference preseason research was not as maybe in depth as some might expect. But I picked up because their hardest game is September 14th at Florida State. They play one ranked opponent. They're going to cakewalk likely through the rest of their schedule. They're probably going to have a very good in-conference record. They're going to have a good shot going into the title game. They're a favorite for a reason. Just made the most sense to me. I wanted to pick USF. I just couldn't get there with their non-conference opponents.
Yeah, I may have gone with my heart a little bit on my pick, but hear me out. Mm-hmm. I have Tulane win in the conference. I think that it's become a little bit of like kind of a a darling. Right? We talked a little bit about it last year in terms of like Vegas darling and covering a lot of spreads, beating a lot of spreads against in-conference opponents, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Decent haul in the transfer portal, and they had a decent recruiting class. So I don't think they're going to see the big precipitous fall off. Even when Michael Pratt was hurt last year, they weren't like a dud on offense necessarily. So while he was great, he's obviously chasing dreams and of making an NFL roster now, but I still think that they're okay. And I think that the experience that they had last year and where they finished last year, losing their coach is, never a great thing, but they did okay in the transfer portal and they didn't hemorrhage that recruiting class that they had coming in. So I'm going to go with Tulane, and I think I'm going to get good money on that. You said it's what, plus
300
flat. So that's
you can get it up if you do. We're not sponsored, so Bet 365 has them at plus 375.
We'll take a sponsorship if you want us to talk only about your odds.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I love Bet 365.
Anybody out there listening? But yeah, I think that's good money for one, and two, the American is really, it's kind of up in the air. It's a very competitive conference. When you start you mentioned South Florida, Memphis, and it's a conference that you do see, like Tulane drops last year. They dropped an important game late in the season on their conference schedule, and that sort of thing can happen. It's kind of like the MAC and some of these other smaller, the Sun Belt, right? You get an upstart team every once in a while that'll come up and upset a bunch of teams. But I think Tulane's still got talent there from last year, and I think they did well enough in the transfer portal and with that recruiting class, not losing a ton of guys after the announcement that their former head coach would be leaving. I'm going to stick with Tulane. And maybe it's a heart play, but I'm going to stick with Tulane for the American Athletic Conference.
I think it's a good pick because I'll tell you why. They play Kansas State and they play Oklahoma back to back in week 2 and 3. However, they don't play UTSA, and they play Memphis at home last week of the season. So, avoiding UTSA, who has the second best odds in the conference, and then playing the favorite at home the last week of the season, I think that's pretty good value there, honestly.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, last year, UTSA and kind of what I thought they would be coming into the season and what they ended up being at the end of the season, I'm a little sour on them. Maybe I was out there. They were my dark horse. If there was going to be a group of 5 team that got into the playoff last year, I thought Frank Harris coming back. They were very underwhelming last year. I know they lost a couple of receivers to the NFL, and they've reloaded pretty well, but I'm out on them. I'm going to stick with our Green Wave down there in Louisiana.
Nice, I like that.
All right, shifting down the alphabet, the Atlantic Coast Conference, where I believe Florida State is the favorite, but the odds are fairly close at the top, correct?
Yep. Yeah. We're looking at, again, just FanDuel. You got plus 290 for Florida State. You got plus 360 for Clemson. You got plus 400 for Miami, and you got plus 600 for North Carolina State. Everyone else is 10-1 or longer odds. I picked
confidence. It has been for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Really, as long as I can remember, it's been a pretty top-heavy offense or conference.
Probably fair, right? When was the last time they were 5-6 deep in that conference? When Mike Vick was there, and Matt Ryan his time.
Yeah, maybe.
When DC and VT were good. I don't know.
Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Either way, I'm going a little bit further down the leaderboard with this pick than I did the last one. Here's one of my teams, and they're going to have to fight against their head coach all season long to try to make it work.
I was tossed up between my pick and the team you're about to pick. So go ahead.
And my God, I just love the talent on this roster. We talked about it last week. I'm picking University of Miami.
Yep.
They're bringing back their leading receiver. I'm almost positive. I did no research on that. It was just kind of a vibe pick, I believe. And his name is escaping me. He's a little dude on the. Oh, he's got a very, very unique name, and when you say it, I'm gonna kick myself. But they also brought in the lead running back from Oregon State last year. again, whose name is escaping me because I'm terrible at names. But
Restrepo.
Yes, Restrepo.
Right.
The number one transfer that they brought in, obviously Cam Ward to play quarterback. A lot of the conversation around Cam Ward has kind of been negative in a way. People are saying that he's not like that he's a bad player or whatever. People are saying that he is being remembered as better than he actually was at Washington State. And I would like to remind people that he was playing at Washington State.
Right.
So I'm a big Cam Ward fan. I think he's gonna be incredible. People forget that Mario Cristobal was like kind of known to be a quarterback guy whenever he was at Oregon. So I'm excited to see what he can do with this Miami Hurricanes team. I'm not as high on Clemson as a lot of people are. Some people think big bounce back year for Cade Klubnik. I can't bring myself to say a nice thing about Dabo Swinney or that conference or that school over there in Clemson. And then Florida State, I just don't know what to make of Florida State. I'm going to be totally honest. They're going to run the shit out of the ball. I was reading today. I think their left tackle started playing college football in 2019. So like casual
European blocking defensive ends.
Yeah, right. He and DJU are going to be in the retirement home together in like 2 years. But I'm going with Miami. They get all of their favorable opponents at home as opposed to being on the road. Now they do have to go out to Cal, which kind of sucks, but Cal's not a very good football team, so I think that they will be fine there.
Yeah, and like I said, I was tossed up between Miami and the team I am going to pick. Like you, I don't know what to make of Florida State. I think they are going to run the hell out of the ball. I think they're going to play good defense. They got a lot of athletes again on that side of the ball. I just don't trust DJU. And I know he had a bounce back year last year with Oregon State. I just don't know that I can trust him because the last time I saw him playing meaningful football in the ACC, he got pulled for the guy who I do think is going to have a big bounce back year this year, Cade Klubnik. I do think Clemson's going to win the ACC. I don't think we're going to see an undefeated ACC champion this year. I think Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and probably NC State are going to beat each other up because I think NC State's a lot better than they're probably going to get credit for from maybe the national media. I just don't know that NC State's going to be able to run that gauntlet. Clemson, I think, is a little bit more kind of battle tested when it comes to like having a coaching staff that's used to a conference that's got a couple of contenders at the top when Clemson first started this run with Deshaun Watson, et cetera. So I'm going to go with Clemson. I think I like what they did defensively, getting back to having a lot more size up front and athletes on the back end. I think they're going to be much better on defense this year, and they were good on defense last year. They were awful on offense the last 2 years with DJ and Cade. Cade showed some flashes when he came in for DJ 2 years ago. Not so much last year, but you and I talked a lot about this last year. The offense that they need to run for Cade Klubnik to be Cade Klubnik, the 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, is not the offense that they were running. It was a lot of like handoff, try to move the chains on third down. I hope that I'm right in terms of kind of the changing of the guard, that they're going to open up the offense a little bit. They didn't last year. If they don't this year, I'm going to be wrong, right? I'll say that right now, that if they run that vanilla-ass offense that they ran last year, you're not going to have to worry about an in-state rival winning their conference this year. But I'm going Clemson because I like what they did in terms of restocking the cupboard on defense and getting fast again, maybe mimicking some of that Brett Venables stuff that they did when he was there. Being able to really spread the field and be able to keep up with athletes on the other side. They're going to have to do that with Miami and Florida State because those two teams have a lot of fucking speed on offense. But yeah, give me Clemson. Give me Cade Klubnik playing well. Maybe I'm going to go to the well too many times with Cade Klubnik, but I loved him coming out of high school. I fucking banged the drum for him all of his freshman year when DJ sucked. And it seemed like DJ must have had some like compromising photos of Dabo to stay as the starting quarterback. But give me Klubnik in a bounce back year and give me a defense that's going to keep them in games that you don't really need the offense to go score 40 points and win a bunch of games in a very winnable conference.
Sure. You know, I've said it before. I just can't. I can't say about Clemson. I don't understand. I'm trying. I attempted in 2003, and I'm at 23 because there's a team that this reminds me a lot of. And where's Clemson ranked? What is their number? 14. Okay. So you mentioned going back to the well this year. There was a team last season.
You gonna hit me with the James Franklin slack?
There is a team that came in preseason number 7 last year, and I think,
Yeah,
I remember telling you they're not that good. But you were enthralled with their defense, which was phenomenal, and I will give you credit for that 100%. But defense is not the problem in Clemson. It never has been.
No.
It's been the offense. And you mentioned them not opening it up, and then you talked about them revamping it, but like they didn't change any coordinators.
They still did last year, and they still ran the Dabo vanilla bullshit. So
yep, they brought in
hoping one more year removed from that.
I don't know. Clemson has the talent. Yeah. I don't know why they're not better. Their offensive line has been a problem the last few years. I don't think they've had any O-linemen drafted in like 2 seasons or something like that, which is like crazy. That was kind of a staple whenever they were winning championships, with Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Yep. But like, I don't know. Dabo needs to get in that transfer portal, baby.
Yeah.
Or don't. I'd be okay with that.
Right. I'm sure you are. All right, moving on down the alphabet here. Big 12 conference. We talked a lot about them last week in terms of your thoughts on how deep they are, and I agree with you. I think this, from top to bottom, might be the best conference in college football in terms of competitiveness from number 1 through number, what do they got, 16 now? From 1 to 16, you don't know on a given week if there's going to be a team that's going to upset the favorite here in the Big 12. I believe this is a pretty tight 3 or 4 at the top in terms of odds. So give us the odds breakdown here, and then give us your champion here in the Big 12.
Yeah, so we're looking at 5 teams. Yeah, 5 teams that are less than 10-1 to win this conference. You got Utah, who's the favorite, followed by Kansas State, Oklahoma State, UCF, and Iowa State. And which is a little shocking because I like Arizona a lot, and they come in at 6. They're actually behind Kansas.
Yeah,
Arizona is 12 to 1. No, 100. Yeah, plus 1,200, 12 to 1. No, 100. I don't know, dude.
12 plus, right?
Yeah. They're plus 1,200 to win this conference.
Yep.
I mean, you got Baylor, who's looking for a bounce back year, who could be decent at like plus 8,000. I mean, Cincinnati, who was in the playoff 2 years ago, is sitting all the way down there at plus 8,000. Like this, like you mentioned, this is a very. It's the opposite of the ACC, right? Like all of these squads coming into the season are thinking like, hey, we have a chance to compete for this conference title, at least the regular season conference title. So I am. I wrote on my notepad here. I took analog notes today. I wrote myself in a little caveat. So this conference is going to be, at least, again, regular season conference. This will be, I know we're talking about conference title, whatever, but the regular season title for this conference will be determined on September 21st because Utah travels to Stillwater to play the preseason All-American running back, Ollie Gordon Jr. in Stillwater on that. I'm assuming that's going to be a night game because it's 2 ranked conference teams at the same. Currently, two ranked teams. My goodness, words are tough today. So I wrote myself in a little caveat here. I'm picking Utah, who is the betting favorite right now. I got them at plus 280 to win this conference. I, however, will also be entering a slip for Oklahoma State to win this conference at plus 800 because I think whoever – yeah, exactly. I think whoever wins that game is going to win this conference, personally. I understand that Kansas State is electric. They almost beat Texas last year. Granted, Quinn Ewers didn't play, and now the starting quarterback at Duke, Malik Murphy, was starting at quarterback in place of him at the University of Texas. But they are starting a true freshman at quarterback in Manhattan. It will be at K-State whenever Oklahoma State goes to play there. But I believe Utah avoids K-State. Yeah. But after playing at Oklahoma State, they have to play home against Arizona, which I know that you and I are both really high on Arizona this year, especially on offense. So all of that rambling aside, I'm picking Utah to win this because I believe in what they're doing over there in Salt Lake City, just outside the city.
Yep.
You and I have been high on them before
Yeah.
we even started this show, we talked about how much we liked Utah and Cam Rising, who I believe is the second oldest starting quarterback this year in college football, something like that.
He's old.
Yeah. I
It's
really, really
college
like.
years, you know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. He's a spring chicken outside of that.
Yeah.
I think they're phenomenal. Anyone that has to play there at night is just going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
When that sun goes down, Utah just wins football games. That's kind of how that works. So I'm going to take Utah with the caveat of changing my pick on September 21st.
That's fair. That's fair. We allow it here. We allow
Okay.
it here. I like that hedge though, because I think in my eyes this came down to a 3-team race, and I might try to sneak a slip in on Arizona, because I think that offense facing Big 12 defenses on a weekly basis, with the exception of Utah, but Arizona, I think, can score with the best of them. You mentioned Fafita. Their quarterback wide receiver combo is going to be just electric this year. But I'm going to go with Utah to win this. I know that's the chalk pick, but Cam Rising, if you tell me today that he is 100% healthy, Utah is the best team in the Big 12, and Utah is my dark horse to win a national championship. If you tell me that Cam Rising is 100% healthy, he's that much of a difference maker for them. He is, when he was healthy, even when they had Dalton Kincaid there, he was the straw that stirred that drink. He was 80% of their total offense. It was a crazy number that he was when he was healthy there. If you told me he was healthy, and maybe I'd ask if he's going to play all 13 games, including the Big 12 championship. If you told me he's going to play all 13 games, I bet you this team is probably a top 4 seed, and they're my dark horse to win a national championship. Now, Cam Rising has not had a history of being healthy, so that's the risk, right? And that's the caveat. If he doesn't play the whole season, I'm going to miss this one, right? But I do think that Utah, with that defense, we've talked about how much their defense can suffocate opponents. If they get Cam Rising at or near his best, this team, I think, can run the table in the Big 12, despite how competitive we have talked about it being. That's how good I think Utah can be if Cam Rising's at his best.
100%. I mean, you know, as much as anyone that I love Cam Rising, and Kyle Whittingham runs just an incredible program. He's already named his successor. Why not take a slip, 60-1 right now to win the national title?
Right.
Wins the national title. Cam Rising graduates. They both kind of walk out the door champions. And then, of course, they consistently have one of the 10 best defenses in college football.
Right.
And now the DC is slotted to become the future head coach.
Yeah.
Train keeps rolling there.
Yep, for sure. One aside for you. So we talked last week about Colorado coming back into the Big 12. Do you think Colorado has a chance of having a better season this year, or is this competitive Big 12 going to maybe put the nail in the coffin of Coach Prime?
Let me pull up their schedule real fast. So you're asking me, do I think that they're going to win 5 games?
5 games, right?
Because last year they won 4 games.
Yeah, so they've got K-State, Utah, and Oklahoma State at home.
Yes.
They go to Arizona, they go to Kansas,
they go to Texas
Nebraska, they avoid Texas Tech.
No, they go to Texas.
Oh no, they're at Texas Tech. I overlooked that. You're right.
They're also at Nebraska, the game that they should have lost on opening weekend last year.
Yep.
Man, 1, 2. We'll say win Baylor at home. 3, 4. Did they beat Cincinnati for their 5th win? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cincinnati would be their 5th because they're not going to go in. They're not going to go into Texas Tech and win. They're not going to beat Utah. They're not going to go to Lawrence, Kansas and win, and they're not going to beat Oklahoma State in the last game of the year. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say they win 4 games.
If they don't have 5 wins after Cincinnati, they're not going to improve on next season.
No. I don't think they can win to Lubbock and win.
I don't think you're wrong. I just wanted to get your feeling for it because there's obviously the hype train for Colorado, right? With Coach Prime and all he's done there. I don't know that they did enough on the offensive line to protect him, even in a bad defensive conference, right? it's Utah, and every once in a while Oklahoma State will field a good defense, but like it's Utah and nobody else, and they still might struggle to protect Shedeur against this conference. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable. All right, onward and upward. Enough Coach Prime talk for tonight.
Can I give you a team that I wanted to pick, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it? What's the number for this squad? Okay, so it's actually better than expected. Plus 850 UCF. Gus Malzahn has a lesser version of Cam Newton down there playing quarterback for him and KJ Jefferson.
Yep.
Woo, buddy.
Yeah.
That team is going to put a hearting on some folks on the offense. I'll tell you that right now.
They were competitive last year too. Malzahn had them turned around. They were knocking some teams off last year. So yeah, that's I like that dark horse pick. I like you get decent money on them. You said 850?
Yeah, plus 850. I have another one on my list that's 25-1, who I like a little bit more as a dark horse, just because they have a favorable schedule. But we'll get to that later down the line.
Okay, I like it. All right, well, moving on from the teaser, the Big Ten, where this feels like, in reality, the odds may not say this, but in reality, this feels like a two-horse race, and they play pretty early in the year on a pretty stacked fucking weekend as well.
Yes.
If you're not in front of your TV on September 12th.
October, I'm sorry. Fucking September. October 12th. You are wrong, because that is a loaded college football schedule.
It seems like this is Ohio State, Oregon, but give us some of the odds breakdown, and then I want to hear who you think is going to win this conference.
Yeah, so Vegas tends to agree with you. You got Ohio State at plus 150. You got Oregon at plus 210. Then it jumps all the way to, shockingly, Penn State is the third favorite to win this conference. They're all the way up at plus 490, so you're not getting like an incredible odds jump. But then it jumps to Michigan at plus 850. And then the next closest is Southern Cal at plus 2,000. So it's like you got four teams who could realistically win it, and then everyone else is a real long shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be looking at, Rutgers just lost their best defensive player for the season today, or maybe it was yesterday. I don't remember.
For a program, it felt like it was starting to turn a corner, too.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe if you believe in Dylan Raiola, you can get Nebraska at plus 5,000. If literally everybody on Ohio State gets hurt, potentially. You look at in Oregon. If you really believe in Jed Fish's ability to turn a program around like instantly, Washington is plus 110. How many zeros is that? My eyes are bad. I don't know. Plus 110,000. Like you're looking at crazy. Plus
they lost
11,000. Excuse me, 11,000.
A lot of players followed Kalen, and they lost a bunch to the NFL. So
yeah, I mean,
that's
if you bet anything outside of Michigan, I would like to book your bet for you. I'm booking anything outside of the top four, personally.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, similar to the Big 12, I wrote myself a caveat into my pick here. You mentioned it, October 12th. Yeah, I'm going with Ohio State. We can talk about why in the later segment when we get to our playoff stuff. But yeah, they play, I believe they go to Oregon on October 12th. Oregon is a tough place to play. The crowd gets wild up there. I think Dan Lanning is miles ahead, or streets ahead, as some people might say, better of a coach than is Brian Day. Kicker, though, Ohio State has so much goddamn talent.
Yeah.
And they have Chip Kelly with a full offseason to work in his freaking offense to these guys they've got running around. I think they're going to be incredible. I think Ohio State probably wins that game, if I'm being honest, and then wins this conference. But I wrote the caveat in that this conference will be decided on October 12th. Whoever wins that game wins this conference, and then it's a crapshoot in the title game.
I like it. Actually, I've got a double because I had three teams that I was looking at in this. That one was a dark horse. So I just need to make sure. Yeah.
Did you go back to the well?
No, I didn't go. I don't trust it. I will say this before I get to my pick.
Mm-hmm.
If ever there was a year that you could make the case. No, I'll say this. James Franklin, if he doesn't win big this year, if he doesn't get in the playoff this year, I'll put it that far. If he doesn't get in the playoff this year with how loaded this roster is for Penn State, he probably shouldn't be the coach at Penn State. It is such a good roster from top to bottom. Another year with Drew Aller under center. Just open the offense up a little bit because I think Drew Aller is a capable quarterback. You just can't turn around and hand the ball off twice, and on a 3rd and 11, you try to fucking throw the ball and expect him to be able to do it. And then you're calling fucking underneath routes anyway. Whoever your OC is needs to be fired. I just think as talented as this Penn State roster is this year, if James Franklin doesn't win and win big, I think he needs to go from Happy Valley. All that said, I'm not picking Penn State.
Okay. I just quick question before you make your selection.
Yep.
Is 3-17 a good record? Just if you play 20 games,
it's close.
Okay, well,
he's like light years away from the next closest person in terms of bad record against top 25 teams. It's so bad.
He's 12-25 against top 25 teams and 3-17 against top 10s.
Yeah.
So that's tough. That's tough.
So I don't know how he still has a job, but again, like I said, they have a lot of talent this year. If he doesn't do it this year, he probably should be gone from Happy Valley. All that said, I like your caveat. If Oregon wins October 12th, I may flip my pick, but I have Ohio State winning. My only concern for Ohio State, and we may see this rear its head against Oregon when we know they're going to have to score points to win that game because Oregon is going to fill up. They're going to light the scoreboard up. Will Howard concerns me a little bit for Ohio State. And I know he's a seasoned guy. I thought they had all their eggs in the Cam Ward basket, though.
Yeah.
And I think Will Howard was a bit of a consolation prize when they didn't win that sweepstakes. And I don't know if they've got full confidence in him because it took until, 6 days ago for them to announce that Will Howard was going to be the starting quarterback in Columbus against Akron. So, I have a little bit of trepidation about Will Howard at the quarterback position. However, when you've got Trevion Henderson and Trayshawn Judkins to just be able to turn around, give him the ball, and let him go, just do that a bunch. Just do that a bunch because they are so good. Put them both in the backfield at the same time and keep the defense on their toes, hand it off to one play and the other one the next, and just ask Will Howard not to lose you games. You're probably going to win a ton for Ohio State because they're so talented. Reloaded again on defense as we would expect. They're going to be able to rush the passer, athletes on the back end. They do have weapons on the outside still when they do ask Will Howard to throw the ball, but golly, just run the damn ball.
Yeah, for sure. They they have this kid whose name is Jeremiah Smith, but his close friends such as myself call him JJ Smith, who's a 6'3", 250-pound freshman, plays wide receiver for them. Who, if you do any sort of research whatsoever, you get names like Julio, you get names like Calvin Johnson, like Demarius Thomas. Like those are names that are held in high regard in college football circles. And that kid is a freak. And they bring back an All-American, Emeka Ibuke, who's a receiver they got going on the outside as well.
Yep.
My question for you, though, is you mentioned that they are not, or you specifically, are not super high on Roger or Howard, excuse me. Well, Rogers, Will Howard. I'm going to get it messed up all year long. I'm so sorry. Will Howard.
Both transferred, too.
Yeah, right.
That's the bad thing.
There is another transfer quarterback on this roster.
Yeah.
Whose name is Julian Sayin.
Yep.
Who was a 5-star that committed to Alabama, and then Nick Saban retired.
Yep. Do
you think that there's a chance that if that October 12th game goes poorly, or really any other game, right?
Oh, yeah.
You think there's a chance that Julian Sayin steps on the field?
I think there's a chance we see Julian Sayin take meaningful snaps at some point this year. Whether it's in a game that they feel comfortable in and they're going to kind of play series to series with those two, I honestly thought he was going to win the job, and that's probably, maybe it wasn't that they didn't have a lot of confidence in Will Howard. Maybe it was that Julian Sain came in and showed what he showed to get Nick Saban's scholarship offer down there in Alabama. But I thought there was a real possibility that he was going to win that starting job.
Yeah.
I do think we're going to see him, and I do think without a doubt if they lose that October 12th game, unless they lose it 63 to 62.
Yeah.
But if there's any sort of struggle from Will Howard against Oregon, I think for sure we'll see Julian Sain. And I think they're going to be on a short leash this year because I think Ryan Day's under a lot of pressure to win. I think he's spent a lot of money in NIL money, and they're looking for a return on it because he's been very vocal about what it costs to keep defensive ends and quarterbacks and all that. I do think there's a lot of pressure on him, and I do think he's going to have a short leash with Will Howard, and that probably is a bit indicative of why the late announcement of Will Howard as the starter as well. He wants to be sure. He wants to make sure that the amount of talent that they've assembled there is going to be serviced well by having the right quarterback under center. And I also think he's trying to protect his job because I think he'll be on the hot seat if Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten this year because you can't lose to that team up north the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And expect to keep your job, right? He's pretty fortunate he's kept it to this point. If he doesn't win the Big Ten this year, might be some trouble. Even if they beat Michigan, I think it's a Big Ten title or bust at a minimum for Ryan Day this year. What do you
100%.
think? Do you think we're going to see Sain?
I'll save my answer for the playoff portion and the futures prediction.
I like it. We're teasing a lot of stuff for the playoff portion. I like it. All right. One quick aside. I think Nebraska's like a year away from being in this conversation. I think Matt Rule is one, that good at building a program, and two, I think they've got a guy under center that they're going to be able to build around next year. I think Dylan Raiola, he seems like coming out of high school, he seems like he's going to be the real deal in college, and I think if they're able to put the right talent around him on offense, they might be able to make some noise in the Big Ten. Not saying I'm gonna pick them to win the 2025 Big Ten championship, but I think that next year we're going to be talking about Nebraska in a very different light than we are this year.
Sure, that would be exciting.
All right,
quarterbacks are better.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Conference USA, where I think this was pretty heavily Liberty, correct?
Yes.
In terms of odds?
Minus 220.
220. Yeah.
They're
like the only minus favorite, right? In conference championships. Yeah.
I picked Liberty.
Me too. I looked on down the line, like who's gonna come up and challenge them. Is it Middle Tennessee State? Is it Jacksonville State? Because I think Bobby Petrino's doing some good things down there in Jacksonville State. I just don't think they've got the horses. I think Liberty has a chance to make the playoff this year. Not to spoil too much in terms of our playoff talk in a minute, but that's how good I think Liberty is compared to the rest of this conference. And Vegas, clearly Vegas agrees with the odds.
Bobby Petrino is at Arkansas, by the way. Who's Jacksonville
State? Who am I thinking of at Jacksonville State?
I heard it and I was like, that's not right.
Somebody with a name is at Jacksonville State.
Rich Rod.
Damn it. Yeah, I knew it was an offensive guy. Rich Rod. Yep. As soon as you said it wasn't Bobby Petrino, Rich Rod's name was in my head, but I was like, that ain't right, is it?
Yeah.
Rich Rod. Right. I knew we knew the guy. Bobby Petrino. Yeah, he was at Western Kentucky. Now he's back at Arkansas, and hopefully he's not screwing interns or anything. But
he rode in on his motorcycle and so I'm here to save the day.
Yeah.
Sam Pittman, watch out, buddy.
Yeah, look out, Sam. All right, moving on to the Mountain West, where I think we've got some interesting goings on at the top of this conference. So give us a little bit of the odds breakdown, and then give us your pick for who wins this conference.
Yeah, so I misspoke earlier. There actually is another favorite with a minus sign. It's Boise State. They're at minus 150 to win this conference.
Are they that heavy?
Yeah. UNLV probably would have been closer, but their quarterback transferred out after last season. His San Jose State, a team that a lot of people liked last year, they're starting a true freshman this year quarterback.
I got them at even money. That's why I didn't think they were minus. I actually have a wager in for all my conference winners, by the way.
Nice.
I got them at even money, though. So this was a little while ago. I'm sticking with my pick from like a week ago.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I'm picking Boise State here. I like what they're doing. They're running a per style offense. They have an incredible he's on the All-American roster, but he's listed as like an all-around guy, kind of like a Travis Hunter, but he's the running back. Jaunty, I believe is his name. Jaunty. I watched a lot of their games on mute because I'm doing other things that late at night. But, I like the blue field. They didn't start my boy. I have to eat a little bit of crow here. Malachi Nelson.
I was waiting for you. I was giving you a chance to say it.
My most my second most impactful transfer because you took Cam Ward from me.
See, I took the number one, right?
I know. Right. It's okay. Honestly, I should have said Dylan Gabriel, but that felt a little bit too boring. I wanted to go a little more off the beaten path. But Malachi Nelson, did not win that starting job. I don't know what he's going to do. He could play somewhere 100%, but it may not be at a big-time school.
He's going to have to eat a year eligibility now.
Yeah, which sucks for him, but, such is life sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm picking Boise State. I think their offense is going to be pretty good. I truthfully don't know a whole lot about their defense, but I think they're going to be able to put up points and maybe outlast some different opponents, not to mention they're pretty heavily favored to win this conference.
Yeah, it is interesting that what seemed like the favorite to win the starting job there at quarterback also isn't, but I guess they have confidence in whoever they roll out there because that's a pretty stout roster. The Mountain West is pretty weak this year as well. Fresno State being down, San Diego State being down. It's going to be interesting to see if anybody can really rise up and challenge in the Mountain West. But yeah, I'm with you on Boise, as I already spoiled. I got them at even money. That's why I wasn't sure that they were also a minus favorite. But as we found out, they are now. It's shifted.
I think that change tabs. The best I see them here is at DraftKings at minus 120. So
nice.
You did well.
Yeah, shit. Can't complain. I'll take the juice. All right, we are not going to address the Pac-12 because neither is the NCAA. And we'll move on to the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, the darling hotbed of football that has 4 preseason top 6 ranked teams.
Yeah.
And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the top 25. Yep. Starting with Georgia at 1, onward through Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and rounding out the 9 in the top 25, we have Texas A&M at number 20. I know these odds are fairly tight at the top. We've got a bit of a kind of clear-cut favorite, but I know you and I have talked about the fact that we see a couple of teams in the SEC that could challenge. The schedule was very weird this year. Georgia seems to have gotten a very opportunistic schedule, and I feel really bad for Florida Gators fans because they're playing an NFL schedule this year. Like, what happened there? They missed nobody on their schedule. And then Georgia on the opposite end of that has kind of a bit of a cupcake schedule. There's a couple on their schedule that obviously are going to compete, but they got a pretty favorable schedule. Walk us through a little bit of the odds and then give us your pick for the SEC.
Yeah, so Georgia's coming in as your favorite at plus 180. The best you can get them at right now is plus 190. So if you're going to do it, jump on it quick. Texas is your second favorite. It jumps all the way to plus 350 for Texas. So Vegas really, really likes Georgia. You mentioned their schedule. Yeah, they get Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home. They do have to go to Austin.
Yep.
But it's in October, so the heat shouldn't really matter that much. It's not going to be a crazy game. They go to Ole Miss. I've been to the Grove. It's going to be wild there that day. I'm assuming that's going to be a night game. And they get Tennessee at home, which, Nico Iamaleava is he's already said that he likes to play on the road. he's never played between the hedges before. Sanford Stadium, not a friendly place to opposing quarterbacks.
No.
As someone who watched a person with my namesake on the back of his shoulder pads go in there and get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
Shout out Jake Bentley. But
not to mention the defense that will be playing between the hedges.
Yeah. Well, he played against Iowa's defense last year. I mean, in the bowl game.
Okay.
Like half of Iowa's defense, but still.
Yeah.
All right, so you got Georgia plus 180, you got Texas at plus 350, you got Alabama at plus 500, and you get Ole Miss at plus 700. Then it jumps to LSU, A&M. Everybody's more than 10-1 after that. This is a pick that's going to surprise you a little bit, I think. So last year, as we remember, I went 3 for 4 with playoff picks, and I told you that Texas was back. So I'm in on Texas. This year, I have a different SEC team that I'm in on. And to say that they're back is probably an incorrect term because they never really left. I'm in on Bama.
Ooh,
I'm in on Bama.
I'm in
on Bama. Give it to me at plus 500. I'm in on Kalen DeBoer. You and I have talked extensively about him on this program. All he does is win, dude. That's what he does. He wins. He fucking wins.
All he fucking does is win.
Yes.
NAIA, Pac-12. Now he's heading to the SEC.
Big Ten at Indiana.
National title game.
Yeah. I'm in on DeBoer. I'm in on Bama. Roll Tide. I will say, though, they do host South Carolina this year.
Trouble.
I'm just look.
Big trouble.
Look, I get it. South Carolina, the little brother. Nah. Fuck that. No, I'm kidding. They have to host Georgia, though. They do get Georgia at home on September 28th. It's already in as a night game. I'm sure there's probably a line on that already you can find somewhere.
I'm sure.
I did not write myself a caveat. I thought about writing myself a caveat saying this conference will be decided on that day. I did not. I went with my gut. I'm going with Bama. I think they win that game. I think they beat Georgia. I'm not a Carson Beck guy. I'm not sure who's better, him or Cade Klubnik. They look like the same person.
I'm not a big Carson Beck guy.
They lost Lad McConkey. They lost Brock Bowers.
They lost a lot of their firepower on offense, and they didn't reload on that side of the ball.
Not as much.
They're gonna have talent. They're gonna have athletes, but they didn't. I don't feel like they replaced what they lost.
Yeah,
they're gonna.
They brought in Trevor Etienne, but
they're gonna be so goddamn good on defense, though.
Oh yeah, they're insane on defense.
It's unbelievable. They're gonna put like 9 more guys in the NFL this year.
Yeah, true. But I'm going with Bama. But this is the spot. This is the 25-1 spot, Gary. Okay. This is the one. The 25. Let me pull up their schedule. Hold on, so I can justify this to you. All right. Now, this is gonna sound a little bit crazy. It's a team that plays.
We like crazy.
It's a team that plays in the city of Columbia.
Oh man,
Missouri. I like the Missouri Tigers. They have an incredible quarterback.
Yeah.
Brady, whatever. They have what's that?
He can spin it.
Yes. They have 2 very good running backs. And if you remember last year, you and I we heaped praise on Eli Drinkwitz, talking about how he had this program headed in the right direction.
Yep.
Their toughest game on their schedule. They have to go to Alabama on it's October 26th. I don't know if that's Halloween weekend, or I guess the next weekend would be Halloween weekend. I don't know. Halloween's in like the middle of the week this year. They have to go to Tuscaloosa on October 26th. Now, I know I already made the pick for Alabama to be the best team in the SEC and win the conference, whatever. If I am incorrect and Alabama is not good and Kalen DeBoer struggles in year 1, who's to say that Missouri, who, yeah, they have to go at A&M, but that's not till October 5th. A&M's going to be bad by then. They host Auburn. They host Oklahoma. They play at South Carolina. So potentially they could lose that game. But like, they host Arkansas to close the year. They really don't play a murderous row of a schedule. If they can go to Alabama and win that game, they could be the highest ranked team in the SEC just by wins and loss record, right?
Yep.
Like, I think 25-1 is worthy enough of taking a flyer on a very, very talented, at least on the offensive side of the ball, Missouri team who has what I think is a really, really good head coach.
Yeah, and they got a kicker that hit fucking bombs for game winners.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. At my expense. Multiple times.
That's unfortunate. So I went on. I don't know that I went off the beaten path necessarily, but I got decent odds on this. I think when I booked it, let me double check what odds I got when I booked it, but I got them at plus 600. So I'm in for a few different reasons. One, I love Lane Kiffin. Two, I think they did very, very well in the transfer portal. Despite losing Judkins, I think they reloaded well. Jackson Dart, one more year in the offense. He seems to be able to teach a masterclass on the Lane Kiffin offense. And they've got a very, very favorable schedule this year. They host LSU. They host Oklahoma. They host Georgia. And they have to go to LSU, and those are the only 3 preseason ranked teams on their schedule. Now, I do know that on October 5th, they do have to go to Columbia, not Missouri, the tougher Columbia. I do know that.
Revenge for Juice Wells.
But yeah, you mentioned it, right? The transfer portal, they did really, really well. I think Juice Wells, adding him to that offense, Jackson Dart running it another year. I love their schedule. And I think this could be the year that we finally see the Lane Kiffin hype really pay off. I think we're going to see potentially they'll play Georgia twice this year. I think they'll play Georgia. They host them during the regular season, and they may end up seeing them again in the SEC title game, even if they win that game because Georgia's schedule is fairly favorable. Now, if Bama gets in, they won't have to face Georgia twice, right? And it'll be the first time they're facing Kalen DeBoer. So I think the schedule lines up really well for them. I don't think LSU is going to be as good as that number 13 ranking this year, so I don't fear that trip to Death Valley as much as I probably would have in years past for a team like Ole Miss. And I just think Ole Miss is a better team than that LSU team. So I do think that they can go on the road. I think they can go down into the Bayou, and I think they can knock off the Tigers. And then hosting Georgia is a really, really favorable way to face that team instead of playing them between the hedges. So I'm taking Ole Miss. I'm taking the plus 600, and give me Lane Kiffin and the Land Sharks down there in Oxford, Mississippi. So their out of conference schedule is fucking dog shit too. Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah, so they're pretty well set in terms of scheduling, but they also I want to go back to Missouri too. You mentioned it. Missouri did really well in the transfer portal. They were number 7 ranked in the transfer portal, and they had a top 20 recruiting class. So You mentioned it, Eli Drinkwitz turning that program. They might be turning a corner and become kind of a yearly contender here in the SEC. So they're doing really well. But Ole Miss, give me them winning the SEC and potentially locking up one of those top 4 seeds in the playoff.
I love that because I love Lane Kiffin. I love the Grove. I'm like a closeted Ole Miss fan. I just love everything about it. I remember
when their uniform combinations
too,
man. They got some real good ones. The baby blues.
Yes.
I'm a sucker for a baby blue uniform. Tulane, fucking the Chargers, North Carolina can get me with them too.
Okay, all right. Let's not get carried away now with the North Carolina talk here. Relax.
Oh man, I had to sneak that one in.
Yeah, I figured.
Not only are you a Duke fan, but you're a South Carolina fan, so you get the double dip on North Carolina hate.
I did get a Duke reference into this episode. I want that noted.
Yes, you did.
I did get that in there.
Yes, you did.
Manny Diaz out there coaching his ass off in his first year.
Yeah.
Good luck, bud.
Good luck. All right. Shifting on down, the last conference that we picked here, last conference alphabetically, the Sun Belt Conference, where App State is a pretty decent favorite. I'm going to spoil my pick.
Okay.
Because I got them at plus 300. Go ahead and break us down the odds a little bit because I think that line has shifted some since I booked it.
You can still get them at plus 300 on 365. FanDuel has them at 270. And then you get to Texas State at 360. University of Louisiana is at 550. Our hometown James Madison Dukes plus 700. Then you get to South Alabama at 12-1, and everybody below them is even longer odds, to include Coastal Carolina at 20-1. Tough. I went a different direction. I took Texas State. They have, I believe he's a lefty.
Yeah.
A quarterback down there who's got some fucking wheels on him.
Yeah, he does.
I think the offense is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say this, kind of a side note caveat or side note to Texas State. I don't know what it is about them with college football 25 if you haven't been playing, but they make the playoff like every fucking year.
Yeah.
They are unbelievable. They've lost like 4 games. I'm like 6 years into a dynasty. They've lost like 4 total games. It's crazy. I heard a rumor that one of the developers graduated from Texas State because they're a powerhouse like everywhere. It's like a Reddit thread that Texas State's a powerhouse in college football 25. So just that little aside for them in their corner. But yeah, I mean, if you're among the couple heavy favorites in the Sun Belt, then maybe you're okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. We talked conference winners, so we've made our picks for conference winners. So we're going to do this in a little bit of an unorthodox fashion. We're going to go on down a list. You don't necessarily have to give who you think is going to be the 1 seed versus the 8 seed. Good. But we're going to walk through 8 teams that we each have as a lock to make the playoff this year. And I'm going to throw it your way first, Bentley. Who's your first lock to make the playoff?
Alabama.
You win the SEC, you're in, right?
Champion. Yeah. You win the SEC, you're probably 1 seed.
Probably the 1
seed.
Let's be honest. Probably the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll throw mine out there. Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is a lock to make the playoff this year. I think what they did in the transfer portal, bringing Jackson Dart back, and having another year with him at quarterback, I think was a big plus. And I think Jackson Dart's going to have a lot of Heisman consideration when we get to November and December.
14-1. 14-1. The Jackson Dart 14-1 to win a Heisman.
Yeah, suck it, Virginia. I can't fucking put that bet in. I don't understand it, man. Fuck. Just give me player props, damn it. I'll have to fly to Vegas or something to put one in. Oh, Jesus.
So I just went kind of like by conference. I didn't rank them 1 through 8. So if we have overlap, I don't know how exactly you lined yours up. My second lock is University of Georgia. I think they're going to be the second best team in the conference. But
so you're thinking they're going to lose to Alabama in the SEC championship?
Probably.
Yeah. You finished second in the SEC with probably 1 loss, maybe 2. You're probably going to be up there and maybe the 2 seed. I'm going to go with my Big Ten champion in Ohio State, probably the 2 seed. I think an SEC champion, unless Ohio State runs the table and they're undefeated and the SEC champion has a loss, I think the Big Ten champion will be the 2 seed behind the SEC champion. So give me Ohio State.
Yep, good pick. My third lock, shout out Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss.
I like it. You got 3 SEC teams locking them in. You got.
Yep.
We won't spoil it. You're locking in 3 though. I like it.
Yes, lock it in.
I like it. I'm not going to go with either of the champions that I thought were kind of iffy picks. So I'm going to actually piggyback off of your pick. I think Georgia, with that favorable schedule, is going to be a second SEC team that gets locked in.
Yeah. My next, Ohio State, going to the Big Ten. Even if you lose the Big Ten championship, you probably get into this tournament because it's 12 goddamn teams.
Yeah. There's quite a few. Quite a few compared to years past. I'm looking at schedule, and I'm looking at the way it kind of broke down, and hosting Florida State, who I think is probably the toughest team on their schedule. I don't know what to think of Texas A&M. So if this team goes and lays an egg in College Station week 1 against Texas A&M, then I'm going to be way wrong about this. But I think that Notre Dame, with the amount of talent that they've brought back, the fact that they seem, again, maybe this guy's going to stink, but seem like they've got a quarterback that can fucking play finally. And I really like what Coach Freeman's done there and the way he can rah-rah the troops and the way they play defense. If they get anything from that offense, that schedule is very, very favorable for them. They play a ACC heavy, especially now that Stanford's gone to the ACC schedule, which we talked about, right? Top heavy. The only real top contender in the ACC they play is Florida State, and we both have our questions about who Florida State's going to be. Give me Notre Dame. Probably, if I had to say of the top four, definitely the one I expect the most to be wrong about. But give me Notre Dame as a lock because I think their schedule is favorable, and we know that college football finds a way for Notre Dame to be a participant in big games in January.
Yes, they do, regardless of whether they're good or not.
Yeah.
My next pick will be Oregon. I think Oregon locks it in to the college football playoff.
I like that pick. I'm just gonna get it off the table. Oregon. I have Oregon in my top 8. I didn't have them next on my list, but Oregon's in my top 8. So I think the same thing. I think that October 12th game between Ohio State and Oregon is going to decide the Big Ten. But I also think that we're going to see a rematch potentially between those teams in the Big Ten championship. And I think that a 2-loss team, say Ohio State runs the table, wins the Big 12 or Big 10, and Oregon only lost to Ohio State twice, they're definitely going to be in the playoff.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep,
I agree. I could see those two teams splitting though. I could absolutely see those two teams splitting and then both getting in anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll do the same thing you did here. I'm going to take Notre Dame. I was a little surprised you had Notre Dame in your lock. I thought I might get you there.
I thought I was kind of stupid there for a minute. I thought you were going to tell me I'm an idiot.
No. I would never do that if you have the same team on the list as me.
I wasn't expecting you to have them.
Yeah. Schedule.
Schedule, man. That
looks pretty good.
So favorable. Yeah.
If they can beat A&M week 1, I feel like they have a pretty good shot.
Yep. Yeah, they got to get out the gate well against A&M, and I think they got a chance to really run the table.
Yeah.
I don't think USC's going to – I can't believe they're ranked 23. I guess they're in the Big Ten, and they're going to get some of that preseason favoritism for being in the Big Ten, but that defense is going to be atrocious again. And I don't know they're going to be able to fucking outscore teams all that well. They're going to have some talent on offense, but yeah, that Florida State game could be an issue, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get to that game. When is that again?
It's late in the year.
It is pretty late in the year. November 9th. If we get to November 9th and Florida State's not ranked in the top 25, I wouldn't be surprised. So that schedule to me is pretty favorable. So, let's see. Where was I? I just had Oregon. Oh, okay. Give me Utah because I've got them. I think I went on the premise that Cam Rising is healthy and he's going to play every game this year. I think Utah runs the table. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like the 3 seed potentially behind the SEC and Big Ten champions. Give me Utah as hosting a quarterfinal game.
Okay. In the spirit of uniformity, I also picked Utah with my caveat / of Oklahoma State being there.
Yep.
So my Big 12 winner, which is officially Utah, will be on this lock.
Yeah, for sure. I need to double check one thing real quick because I picked this team, but then I got thinking I feel like I didn't look at their schedule well enough
to make them a lock.
I did make them a lock because I think they're going to run the table.
Locking Liberty?
I am.
Oh.
Yes, I am, and I am because they're going to win with a lot of style points, and they're going to be an undefeated team. And there's been that caveat from the CFP that undefeated, group of 5, highest ranked, yada yada. I think Liberty's going to get in. They're probably going to be the 11 or 12 seed, and they're going to be a throw-in, and they're going to be thrown to the Wolves. But I think they're going to be a lock because I look at their schedule, and honestly, like, I don't know who beats them. I don't know who beats them. I don't even out of conference. I just don't see it. App State, they do play, but I think Liberty's in a class above App State. I just don't see it. Maybe Western Kentucky can threaten with that offense, but no, I just don't see it. I think Liberty runs the table, and for that reason, and they're going to win with style points, I think that they're going to end up with a guy potentially going to New York at the end of the year, and I think they're going to get into the playoff based on the fact that they are an undefeated group of 5 champion ranked in the top 25. There's that caveat with the playoff. I think that's how they're going to get in, and that's why I'm locking them in.
Okay, so for those that may not be following exactly what's happening, we're locking in 8 teams that we think are going to make the playoff, like regardless if they're an auto bid or not.
Right.
Do you think that they are going to be an auto bid team, or you just think they're going to make the playoff because they'll be the highest rated?
That's what I think.
I guess that would be an auto bid.
That'd be an auto bid because the CFP has that caveat with undefeated group of 5 champion ranked in the top 25 or whatever it is. And I think they're going to win by a lot of style points this year. And they're going to have a Heisman contender in New York who the CFP is going to look at and say,
all right.
What?
Okay.
Wait till you see the numbers at the end of the year.
Okay, Gary. I've said a lot of wild things on this show. I don't know that I've said anything that wild.
Wow, that wild? Dude, he's going to have like 60 touchdowns this year.
Hold on. I want to see what he did last year. Can I go to last year's? Talk about Caden Salter, by the way, for those.
Yeah. I know I haven't said his name yet, but 32 TDs last year.
Yeah. All right. So last year,
he also had, what do you have rushing?
2,800 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,089 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns.
Right. 44 touchdowns last year.
44 touchdowns.
I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman.
I don't think he goes to New York.
I think he's going to be in the conversation to go to New York at the end of the year. He's going to have 60 touchdowns, man. Remember when fucking Cole Brennan almost made it to New York?
Yeah, he had like 75 touchdowns that year. I will book that ticket if you would like to bet Caden Salter to New York.
To New York?
Yeah.
That's a stretch. That's it. I think he's going to be in the conversation.
Okay.
I'll take it. Fuck it. We'll do it on air. I'll take it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've got Liberty locked into the playoff. I've got Caden Salter going to New York. Friendly wager here on board. What are we putting on it?
Well, if you're not, I mean, we can make a friendly wager between the two of us if we're not going to like find the odds for it. That's fine. I thought that you were going to like find the odds and
no odds. He's either in New York or he's not. Between us,
he's not in New York.
What's the wager?
A meal. We'll just bet a meal on it.
A meal, yeah, that works.
A meal.
Bet a
meal on it. All right.
What did Cole Brennan have that year? 58.
It was a lot.
He have 75.
It was close. It was closer than 44.
Salter's gonna have 60.
He's not gonna have 60.
All right.
I'll bet a second meal on that.
All right. I'm off my Liberty soapbox. Who's
your
next lock?
My final lock.
Yep.
We've been lockstep for 7 picks. My last one, they weren't actually the last on my list. Utah was the last on my list. I picked Miami, ACC champion, Miami.
Yeah.
Can't playing in the playoffs.
So I've left my ACC champion off my lock so far
for a reason. Liberty.
For a reason. Because I was so like razor thin margins between Miami and Clemson, right? Because I think Miami is going to be really good this year. And at one point this offseason, I was very close to texting you and saying Miami might win a national championship this year. I'm glad I didn't. Because that would have been maybe worse than picking Liberty to get into the playoff. But
no, Liberty will be. I think Liberty will be in the playoff. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't prepared to put them on my list of 8 locks, though.
Sure. Okay. I used the CFP's own language against them to make them my lock.
That's fair.
But I'm gonna pick Clemson because I gotta keep confidence in my pick for the ACC champion, and I think an ACC champion, there's like a 0.001% chance that an ACC champion isn't gonna make the playoff because they'd have to be like a 4-win or a 4-loss champion to risk potentially not being in that group that gets in. Because it's weird language that the CFP committee has used. Like the top 4 seeds are the 4 highest ranked conference champions, regardless of CFP ranking. And then it's like the next highest ranked team, and the next 7 are kind of like their next 8 are just ranked by the CFP for who gets in and how it is, with one exception, the group of 5 champion that's undefeated. It's weird language that the CFPs use. So there is a possibility that if a Power 5, well, Power 4 now, conference champion isn't ranked in that top 12 at all in the CFP ranking, they could be left out. It's a fucking long shot for anything like that to happen. But so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to stick with Clemson. I have like 3 teams here that I kind of considered as like the last of the 8 locks. I'm going to go with Clemson because I've picked them as the ACC champion, and I don't see any possibility that an ACC champion gets left out of the playoffs. So going with Clemson, I'm going to stick with it. The other 2 teams be damned.
Okay, so we basically had the same list, except I had a third. I had Bama and my
I
ACC.
had 2 SEC. You had 3.
I had 3.
I had Liberty.
Yeah.
Instead of Bama.
Yeah.
We both had our ACC champion.
Yep.
We both had Oregon and Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Both had Utah.
Yep. Any guesses who the other 4 will be? Does another SEC program get in? Does Missouri get in with that easy schedule they got? If they win all of their games except for that Alabama game?
Yeah, I think they get in if you give me that scenario, absolutely. Absolutely. I do think that the SEC is going to get 4 teams in. I think that those last 4 teams that I don't have locked in, two of those were Missouri was one that I was considering potentially near the bottom. And then I look at like, is it Tennessee that is Nico going to be that good, that sort of thing. I do think, is LSU actually going to play up to that 13th ranking, that sort of thing. I think the SEC gets 4. I saw 6 from a talking head on ESPN. 6. It was Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama,
Texas.
Yep, Texas.
Missouri.
That's another one. I have Texas on my list of teams that I was looking at too in terms of, but Texas, was it Missouri or was it LSU? But then like either Missouri or LSU was like the 6th one that they were considering.
Yep.
It was wild to think that half the fucking teams in the playoff would be from the SEC, but the SEC is the SEC, and we know how the CFP certainly feels about the SEC. Do you see him getting 4 in 5?
So you could talk me into Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, and one other one, probably Missouri. You could talk me into 5.
I like Missouri's schedule, so I definitely think that they would be the team that I would. LSU would be a stretch for me, I think, because I think they've got a fairly tough schedule. I haven't looked at their schedule. I also don't know that they're going to be as good as that ranking. It's crazy to me.
I think that both Oklahoma State and Utah get in. As long as Oklahoma State doesn't shit the bed.
Yeah, like they did last year after fucking knocking off Oklahoma.
And again, on this show, for those that don't know, we forecast injury-free seasons. We don't talk in the injury hypothetical. So I'm counting, like you were talking about Cam Rising being healthy all year long. I'm talking about Ollie Gordon being healthy all year long as well, which he got hurt like super late in the year last year. I believe it was like the bowl game maybe he got hurt in. So if Ollie Gordon is healthy all year long, I could see Oklahoma State getting into the playoff. Even if they split with Utah, like regardless of who wins the Big 12, I think they could both get it. Because like they could both run the table, except split with each other and be both 1-loss teams, and you could absolutely put them both in. Because that, like, if they're both running the table, those are 2 top 8 teams maybe. I mean, they're gonna have a bunch of ranked wins on their schedule.
If your only loss is to a top 4 seed, right?
Yeah.
A team runs the table in the Big 12, they're probably a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
Because the SEC is going to have one in there. The Big 10 is probably going to have one in there. And then you run the table in the Big 12, it's probably better than running the table in the ACC.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, right? The CFP is probably going to weigh that a little more heavily because you're going to end up with potentially 5 ranked teams in the Big 12 at the end of the year. And I think the ACC is going to end up with probably its winner and the other participant in the championship game, maybe as the only two.
Yep. I could see 3 in the ACC.
Maybe three.
I could see you could talk me into 4. Louisville was fucking good last year. They
Dude,
played
how
the
about their
ACC title
fucking
game.
transfer portal too?
Yeah, you could
They were
talk
the
me
number one
into
team in the transfer portal this offseason. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Were they doing? They had fucking old Bobby down there doing lines of coke off hookers' asses in the fucking recruiting sessions again or something, huh?
I mean, you could tell me,
or Rick, not Bobby.
Yeah, Rick. Yeah, you could tell me that Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, Miami, North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech are all ranked in the top 25 at the end of the year.
Maybe.
Like,
Tech's got the schedule too. Their schedule's pretty soft.
Yeah.
I talked to you about Syracuse's schedule too. If they're ever going to finish the season in the top 25, it's probably this year.
It's got to
be. Got Cal McCord in, who I know you can feel however you want to feel about him, but Syracuse hasn't exactly had a guy of his caliber in 10 years.
The guy won the starting quarterback job at Ohio State. Like, that has to say something.
Right. And they got a decent wide receiving core. And if you don't know this name, I think I said it last week, but I'm going to remind everybody, Oronde Gadsden Jr., he goes by the second, but Oronde Gadsden, whose father was an NFL stud for a couple of years. He had a couple really good years in the NFL. He is phenomenal at the tight end position. So,
well, we're talking athletes. Nick Harbor, who broke Tyreek Hill's 200 and 400 meter track record in high school and is 6'4", 215 pounds, was the number 1 ranked freak athlete in ESPN's top 300 coming out of high school, not last season, but the season prior. So we want to talk about fucking names you should know. Also, if you haven't played with him on College Football 25,
go get lost with that guy a couple of times. Holy shit. 25
catches, 606 yards, and 8 touchdowns on high field. Not a big deal. Whatever. It's casual. It's casual. I also just beat number 3 Ole Miss 42-6 before I got on the show tonight. So casual. It's not a big deal. We're not freaking out yet.
What's up, Jason? Harv, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys commenting. And yeah, Harv, the free throws are important. So we got a running joke in one of our group chats, right? So I think I told you this story during the NCAA tournament. When Kansas got bailed out at the end of that game with that bullshit call against, who were they fucking playing? That underdog 13 seed team. Who the fuck was it again?
Oh, God.
I can't remember who they were playing, but they'd been winning all game, and then Kansas came back late, and then there was that really terrible call at the end of the game.
Yep.
I bitched about it in this group chat, and we got this guy in here. He's a ref. He refs baseball, basketball. He refs like different sports and shit, whatever, right? His first fucking response was, well, he missed 13 free throws. And I've been razzing him ever fucking said. You can't respond to the most egregious missed call of the tournament with their free throw percentage. I understand that, like, if they'd have made more free throws, maybe we aren't in that situation. But man, miss me with that fucking panty waste of an excuse for a ref blowing a fucking call. It was just fun, and it's been a running joke throughout, and I appreciate Hart for bringing it back up here. But yeah, so let's get to national championship winner.
Yes.
So
that's where I was gonna go.
I'm gonna throw it your way. I don't know how many you considered, but I've got 6 that I really kind of dove deep into in terms of who I think has a chance to win the national championship. Obviously, we've had some teams come from farther back than that in the past, but I've got 6 that I really considered, and I've got 1 dark horse to win the national championship. That I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And I want to hear who you've got, but also I'm curious to hear your thoughts on who I think could maybe surprise some people. But go ahead, bud. Who's your national championship winner?
Okay. So I'm going to preface my statement with a little more bitching about the expanded playoff, right?
I love it.
I'm in this football working group at work, obviously, and there's some guys in there that are not college football guys. So I was explaining to them why I dislike the college football playoff. And one of their gripes was these cupcake schedules don't make for high level football games. Because the talent disparity across the country is so vast that, like, you have these teams that matter and these teams that don't. And I was like, sick, dude. Awesome. That's somebody who's never watched a 14 playoff before. Because outside of last year, I believe every single year in the semifinal round, we had a game decided by double digits, like multiples of double digits. So to me, this college football playoff is going to give us the exact same thing. These early rounds are going to be blowouts, right? We mentioned last year a team that we think is going to get in, Oregon. You locked in Liberty. We both locked in Oregon. Was a 67 or 63-7 game last year, right?
Yeah.
The Florida State Georgia game was like a 58-point blowout or whatever, right? Both of those are teams that could make the playoff this year. Like, it's possible that both these teams are in the playoff. Is the talent disparity any less now because another year has passed and we've added 8 more teams to the playoff? Does that make the talent disparity any? No. So what it does, it takes the talent disparity, and rather than making it an October 11th game where Troy is playing at Alabama and we don't have to watch it because we don't really care, you now get to watch that on a national television at Alabama, right? Because if they host a playoff game, it's at Alabama. So it's going to be even worse, right?
Yep. Those first 2 rounds are in somebody's stadium.
Exactly. So, that being said, I did not go very far down the board to pick a national title. I still think there were only like 5 teams that fucking matter in terms of winning national titles.
Yep.
Because you mentioned this last week, the NCAA or the college football playoff, however you want to gauge it, is trying to capture that March Madness style tournament of this team can get hot, they can beat anybody, any given Sunday type shit. Well, guess what, buddy? It's not the NCAA tournament where you can just rain down threes if your name is Jack Golke. And it's not any given Sunday because it's not the NFL, and the talent disparity between the high-level teams and the teams in the next tier below is so much larger than it is between the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Because I promise you, there's a better chance that the Carolina Panthers beat the Kansas City Chiefs than there is fucking Wisconsin beating Ohio State. Like, that's just the case. That's how this works.
Yep.
So I did not go very far down my list to pick a national champion. Now, last year, I picked Alabama to win the whole thing. And I rode with it. I rode with it all year long. I told you the tide is here. They lost to Texas. I said I'm still in on Alabama. So I started a tradition on the show of picking one team at the beginning of the season. I'm going to ride with this team. I will not be changing my pick. I will be caping for them. I don't care if they lose. I will be spin zoning the fuck out of whatever loss they have into making it sound better for me in the long run, because you want to lose early rather than losing late.
Get it out of the way.
Exactly.
All those cliches, man. You got to have chambers.
Oh, I got them, buddy. So I have some teams that could probably win it, but I'm going to give you my actual pick first, right? I'm going to pick Ohio State. I understand that Ryan Day is not a great coach. I get it. I think we all kind of understand that Ryan Day, there's been thrown out born on third. The born on third thing doesn't really make sense to me because you have to earn a spot on your coaching staff, right? But I can understand that you earn that spot on the coaching staff, but you're not the head coach material, right? We saw it. Chip Kelly came to the NFL, not really head coaching material. He thrived in Oregon as a head coach, but couldn't really get over that hump. He worked out in UCLA. He built that program up to what they are now. But we all got to understand that Chip Kelly not really that.
He got into the Big Ten and then left to be the offensive coordinator of a better Big Ten team.
That's true. It's true.
Phenomenal play caller.
Yeah, right. Phenomenal play caller. The guy can call the hell out of an offense.
Sure, for sure.
So you pair Ryan Day, who has multiple years of head coaching experience at high level. They've been a top 5 team since the day he got there. He's a heck of a recruiter. He brings in talent. He brought in they're returning a top 5 defense, and they brought in last year he was a true freshman at Alabama and led the Nick Saban defense in tackles as a true freshman and downs to play safety. So they return a top 5 defense. They bring in Downs to play safety, and they bring in Chip Kelly to run this offense, which you mentioned, Quinshon Judkins. They brought in Will Howard. They have Emeka Egbuka. They have JJ, the receiver, JJ
Smith.
Yep, from Miami. He's a true freshman. He's from the city of Miami.
From the area.
Yes. They are fucking loaded on the front and the back end of that defense. Their offense is going to be good. I promise you that. Their offense, if they cannot pass the ball, they will run the shit out of the ball. They will be able to pass the ball. But if they cannot...
I think people see all the razzle-dazzle with Chip Kelly offenses. They forget that, even when he was in the NFL, for all of the issues he had in the NFL, his offenses were pretty good. His personnel decisions were pretty fucking sketch, but he ran the fuck out of the ball, dude. Shady McCoy had a career year with him. San Francisco had like 2 no-name backs have good years with it. So like he can run the ball. So if they can't pass it, you're absolutely right. They're gonna fucking run the shit out of it.
Yes.
And I called him Trayshawn earlier, except Travion, Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson are a fucking monster 1-2 punch in that backfield. They may not even have to ask Will Howard to do anything. No. Honestly, in the way that Chip Kelly can design an offense and design the run for sure. You're absolutely right.
Yes. So I go with Ohio State. I hate Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I've hated them for 20 plus years. Don't like Ohio State. Root against them every chance I get. But if I'm financially invested,
right, I got to put a ticket out there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I think they're the best team in college football this year. I hesitate to say that it's not particularly close, but I don't really think it's that close, truthfully. If anything can hold them back, it's going to be Ryan Day.
Yep.
But I don't think that happens. So I'm going with Ohio State.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those in spite of situations. So of the 6, I ended up paring it down to 2. And my 2 were my Big Ten champion and my SEC champion. I legit think that Ole Miss has a team this year that's going to compete. And if they can run the gamut of the SEC, you've got to give them a chance in the national playoff. But I'm with you. I hate that we have the same team. I also hate that it's fucking Ohio State because I hate Ohio State. But I just look at the talent across the board. I look at what Chip Kelly's going to be able to do with that offense. I think the last couple of years, even Kyle McCord's struggles, I think were a little bit based on some of the play calling and the decision making. I think Kyle McCord was a capable quarterback in that offense. But you add a guy like Chip Kelly, I think that offense is going to take off. They're going to run the shit out of the ball. They're gonna have Judkins and Henderson are probably each going to have 900 to 1,000 yards and maybe double-digit touchdowns each. And if that defense is as good as they've returned in terms of the talent that's come back, because we talked about it last year. They were young on defense last year. They had lost all that talent to the NFL, Young and the Bosa brothers and all the other guys that had gone to the NFL. They were young last year on defense. Another year of seasoning, and they've added a couple of studs to it. I think Ohio State's got enough talent to overcome Ryan Day, and I think Chip Kelly is going to make a difference for that offense. I also think that the kryptonite that was Michigan's squad on you offense and defense, that Jim Harbaugh is so good at running. I think with him being gone and them losing J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum and some of the offensive linemen that they lost, I think it's Ohio State's conference for the taking. And I think that they've got enough talent to overcome Ryan Day's fucking shortcomings to win a national championship.
Yep.
My dark horse, I want to talk to you about this because
sure,
they finished 10th and 12th in the recruiting and transfer portal rankings at the end of the offseason. They've got a guy that basically catapulted Ole Miss into contention with one recruiting class, which is very reminiscent of the recruiting class he had this offseason with Auburn. And we know Auburn can play teams tough, and the Iron Bowl, they always seem to give Bama problems. Look at their schedule, dude. Look at their schedule. Their schedule is not that tough this year. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year we're looking at an Auburn team that's in contention in the SEC or an Auburn team that completely flamed out because Hugh Freeze is still a disaster. But he rebuilt that Liberty program, or he built that Liberty program up to where they bring some people in. Auburn is my dark horse. Now, I'm not going to go out. I'm not putting a ticket in on them, but I am going to keep my eye on Auburn as the season goes because they've got a pretty good roster and they've got a fairly favorable schedule. Curious to hear your thoughts, though. You've got a quizzical look on your face with the Auburn pick.
I mean, you said they have a favorable schedule. They go to Georgia, they go to Missouri, they go to Kentucky, and they go to Alabama. I'm not sure what part of that is favorable. You get your home games are A&M, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma.
Yeah, the Georgia game is the big one. They go to Bama all the time. I don't fret Auburn going to Bama. I don't fret Bama going to Auburn either. So I kind of call the Iron Bowl is a wash for me in terms of who's going to win that game. Okay. Mike Davis returned a kick in Bama's house. So, I mean, tomato.
That was at Auburn.
Was it at Auburn? Either
Yeah,
way,
it was at Auburn.
it's Iron Bowl rivalry game. I don't worry too much about that one being on the road. The Georgia one is definitely the big one, but I'm not sold. Missouri's definitely going to be great this year. Kentucky, I do have a really big soft spot for Kentucky, but I'm not sold they're going to be good enough this year. I looked at that schedule and I thought, really, it's Georgia, and then you've got the coin flip at T-Town are the big ones. I don't know who A&M's going to be.
Sure.
But
you know Kyle Field gets rowdy regardless.
Sure.
They do the fucking this thing.
That game's not
the that's a home game, isn't it? Yeah, it's a home game.
Yeah.
Well, they still do this thing in Kyle Field. And
they do.
Nobody knows what's happening. It's like, all right. Slap my ass and call me a donkey. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I looked at that. I looked at what they did in the offseason as well. And I look at what Hugh Freeze was able to do with, the creation of the Land Shark moniker for Ole Miss. I don't know. You don't seem confident in them as a dark horse, though.
I don't think they make the playoff, but
okay.
I mean, if you want to put in the ticket, you can get them.
I said I'm not putting a ticket in.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hedge
15,000. Like,
that's a very soft dark horse.
You have a better chance of talking me in to Oklahoma State at 25,000. Like,
I like Oklahoma State though. I think they could win the Big 12. I don't know how much of a dark horse that is. I know it's a long shot.
Well, to win a national title, their odds are longer than Auburn.
For sure.
I like Hugh Freeze. He's cool. He coached from a hospital bed. That's cool. He likes strippers and cocaine. Like, that's sick. Whatever. Auburn. I watched that offense last year, and Peyton Thorne could not complete a pass to anybody. And you gotta throw the ball to win games in the SEC these days. It's just you gotta score points.
Yeah,
you gotta win games to make the playoff. I just don't see it. I mean, you made a compelling point. I get it. I understand everything you're saying, but like, I disagree that that's a favorable schedule. I think it's tough, but I think Kentucky is a tough place to play, personally. Columbia, Missouri, maybe not like the most difficult place to play, but that's fine.
You're high on Missouri too, and I like Missouri. I just if they were to fall flat on their face this year, it's one of those things where they had a great season last year, and sometimes we see those teams kind of come back, right? Rubber band back. I don't know. Auburn impressed me with their offseason. I think that was the big thing. And we'll see. I think they got some early contributors, and I think Hugh Freeze is a rah-rah guy who can really get a team going. He made Liberty relevant, right? Liberty in fucking bumfuck Virginia.
I will give you this.
We can't fucking wager on anyway.
True.
Even if they did allow Heisman wagering.
I will give you this. Auburn historically is like due for that type of season. It happens every decade.
Every like 6 or 7 years, they have a season where you're like, where the fuck did they come from?
Yeah, they finished like third in the country. Yeah. So I if you're going that route, I get it. That like they're due for a blow up year, compete for a title. I get that. I don't know, man. That offense was abysmal last season.
It was for sure. That was a program in serious disarray last year too.
Yeah. They gave up a 4th and 31.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
A 4th and goal from the 31, I guess.
4th and goal from the fucking 31. Yeah, you allowed that for sure. All right, let's shift gears. We've got real football this weekend, man.
Yes.
Real football. Now, mind you, you can talk about who's playing and what games we've got this weekend, but we've got real on the field football this weekend, starting out in Dublin, where a noon kickoff. It'll be about 5 p.m. over there. So it'll be just getting into the evening. Those Irish boys and gals will be getting sauced up and getting rowdy. They've been really good in these week 0 games in Dublin. They've been really good with the atmosphere. Unfortunately, though, we're not getting the Fighting Irish going over there. I'm not really sure how we didn't just keep that tradition going. I guess the historically Irish connected Florida State Seminoles and the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech from Atlanta were the two right teams to send over to Ireland. They don't even have green on their uniforms. Like I was trying to find any connection, right?
Yep.
I guess Georgia Tech's got gold, right? Pot of gold, maybe. Is that like? Am I?
I think it's an ACC connection.
Sure.
Truthfully.
Sure.
So send Stanford and Cal, obviously.
Yeah, send Stanford and Cal over there next year. Yeah, for sure. At any rate, I say all that to say Florida State and Georgia Tech kick off the college football season over in Dublin for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Phenomenal name, Aer Lingus, by the way. I enjoy that. But Florida State, they are preseason ranked 10 against Georgia Tech. The spread minus 10.5 for Florida State. Georgia Tech laying a bunch. Is that enough?
Nope.
What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm taking the points, or I'm laying the points, rather. I got to get back into my gambling lingo.
Yeah. We'll iron out the wrinkles.
Yeah, we will. I assume going into next week, we'll go back to our top 25 spreads. Yeah. But I'm going to lay the points at Florida State. I mentioned it earlier. They're going to run the shit out of that ball.
Yep.
They're going to run DJU if they have to, who's 255 pounds. Their offensive line is very good. It was really good last year. Their defense, they lost a couple pieces, but I think their defense will still be pretty good. Mike Norvell always does a good job of bringing guys in the transfer portal. And Georgia Tech is a team that's still transitioning from running that triple option into like a normal offense, right? So they're still trying to establish themselves as again, not a triple option team, which they were for so long there in Atlanta. So I'm going to lay the points with Florida State. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a very close game. I don't have a play on the total, but I would lay the points.
Yeah, the line's 55.5. I would probably take the over for Florida State over 55.5, probably. I think they're going to score a bunch, maybe not in the 50s, but I think they're going to score a ton. If Georgia Tech gives me double digits, I think we're going to cruise past 55.5. But yeah, I'm going to lay the points. I think Florida State's going to beat the heck out of this Georgia Tech team. I think Georgia Tech is making some moves. They've got some decent guys on defense, especially, and they're still trying to figure out offense. Like, could they just bring Calvin Johnson back? Because this is the offense they should have had Calvin Johnson in, not the triple option that they ran back in the day. Speaking of triple option, always a fun fact that I like to bring up when we talk about Calvin Johnson. Triple option quarterback Sean McVay won Georgia Player of the Year in his senior season, which was also Calvin Johnson's senior season. So Calvin Johnson did not win a state player of the year in the state of Georgia, and he has Sean McVay, head coach of the Rams, to thank for it.
Yep. It's always a fun football stat.
Absolutely. But I'm with you. I'm laying the points minus 10.5. That doesn't seem like enough. I probably would lay as many as like 19.5 for this game. I think I'd lay a pretty big line on this. If you're daring enough to lay an alternate line, I would lay probably close to 19.5. All right. We have the national spectacle at 4 p.m. on FS1. Montana State versus New Mexico. Montana State laying 11.5, so apparently New Mexico is going to be really bad this year. Anything to take away from this? You're going to tune in, right? We're going to tune in and watch, but we're not going to love it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be on the TV. Right. That's for sure. I'll tell you that right now. It'll be on.
Yeah.
Go Montana State. I don't know.
How is an FCS team laying double digits against an FBS team? That's amazing. Montana State is a very, very good FCS team. I will give them that. But to lay 11.5 against an FBS team, that's wild. The Lobos are in trouble.
What makes it even more wild to me is the line opened at 4.5, and it's moved a touchdown. Yeah, like it's moved a touchdown. I don't. What do they know that I don't? Because I want to be in that group chat.
Yeah, sign me up for that one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can be honest. I don't have a play. I don't know.
Yeah. I may lay the points just because it's been bet up so high. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to a couple teams we know a little more about. SMU, who had a very good offseason, moved to the ACC, had a great finish to last season. They leave the American with the championship, right? They leave that conference and win the last championship that they were involved in. And they'll be taking on Nevada. SMU is laying 25.
Yep.
What do you got in
Another,
this one, bud?
another line that was bet up, opened at 21.5.
Yeah. A little over a field goal it went up, right?
Yeah, I think I like Nevada just because they're at home.
That's a lot of points too.
Yeah, it's a lot of points, and a home opener is always going to draw a crowd, right? No matter where you are. So I would take the points. 25 is a lot. SMU is a good program.
Yeah.
I guess I'll buy the 25 and figure out what happens from there.
Might be sweating it in the fourth.
Yeah, true.
If SMU is as good as that line says, we'll be sweating it in the fourth. I'm with you though. 25 is a lot of points. I know it's been bet up, but 25 is a lot of points, man. Maybe the better line is the over/under. 56.5 seems low. I don't think SMU is going to be as good on defense as they are on offense, so I think Nevada is going to be able to score. If Nevada gets you 14, if they get you 21, I think you're going to blow by that. But if they get you 14, I think you might be okay.
Yeah.
And then we finish up with another FCS FBS matchup. Actual powerhouse in the FCS, Delaware State, who's also as Montana State, right? I don't want to sell these teams short because they are really good at the FCS level. But Delaware State versus Hawaii, who I guess they're getting a bunch. Maybe Delaware State's not going to be as good this year as they have been in the past. But
so I have a number for you on
39.
this one. Yeah. So in their last 12 home openers, Hawaii is 12-2 against the spread. So if you follow the trend,
they're going to win by 50.
Also, Delaware State missed their flight to Hawaii. So I think it got delayed going to Hawaii by a day. So their internal clocks may be messed up.
Oh, that's brutal. That's a tough flight too.
Yeah.
11 hours in the other direction on the clock too.
Yep. Yep. So I will be laying the points. Actually, that was not my play. I wrote down take the over. So that would be my play is take the over.
Yeah, another one that I think you're probably safe to play that over. 57.5 seems low. Hawaii is always going to score points. Not great on defense. Unless Delaware State's not as good as they've been in years past, because they've been a pretty good FCS team. 39 feels like a lot, though. I can't believe that. I wonder if that has a lot to do with them missing that flight and the time change and all that. But 39 is a lot. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's for a Hawaii team. But definitely the over. I guess you have to lay the points, right? You go with the trend. 12-2 is a pretty solid trend. So lay the points, take the over.
Yep.
All right, well, that wraps up our week 0 action. Next week, we're going to have a full slate. As you mentioned, we're going to get back to doing our picks against the spread. We're going to have several top 25 teams in action. There's 2, I think, top 25 matchups next week. Actually, not next week. That's the following week. But we've got some picks next week to make, and we've got a full slate of games to preview. But that was our week 0 preview. We're gonna finish up with a little segment, and we're gonna workshop maybe a name for this, but we're gonna try this live. We're gonna run this live right now. We're gonna finish each week with a segment that whatever we end up calling it, we're gonna talk about something interesting and unique to college football, college sports. Things like favorite tradition, favorite rivalry, favorite trophy, favorite tailgate activity, that sort of stuff. This week, we're gonna throw it way back. So we've talked a lot about the changes to the playoff being an issue. I got you, bud. I got you. This just in, because I was an asshole and we had to start an hour late tonight. We've got to hop off. So preview for next week. We are going to introduce a new segment, and we're going to talk about something interesting when it comes to college football, college sports. But we're going to wrap up this week's episode. we will be much more better on time next week. I was out playing basketball with my daughter and totally lost track of time. So I apologize to everybody out there that was expecting us to be at live on air at 7. I apologize again to you, Bentley, for making you
No worries.
wait for my punk ass for being late. But for Bentley, for the rest of us here at Backyard Sports, this has been our Week 0 preview. First live episode of actual regular season action to preview for Tailgate Trash Talk, brought to you by Backyard Sports. We are